On this first episode of AudioWorx, we will discuss my poor financial choices and brilliant design concepts. As mentioned in a recent video, I recently bought a 2015 Dodge Challenger SXT as my daily driver. Being a used car, it of course needs a few things addressed to ensure it drives well and is reliable. So naturally, the first thing I did was install a new head unit and a set of 12-inch subs. No, wait. Let me explain. When it comes to the 2015 to current Challengers, Chargers, and 300s, there are not a lot of options when you want to upgrade the head unit with something aftermarket. In fact, at this time, there is only one option. I have previously used an Android stereo from Join, and I have been watching the offerings for Extrons for several years. Audio-wise, I think both of those options would be a great fit for this build, but neither company offers anything that works with these cars. Oddly enough, they both do offer plug-and-play units for the Jeep Renegade. I have reached out to both companies asking about other models within the Fiat family. At this time, I'm still waiting to hear back. So that leaves Stinger Solutions, as they seem to have this market cornered with the help of Pack Audio. Together they have built out what I consider to be a very well structured and complete kit that most people will find meets their needs. On top of that, the entire kit is truly plug and play. There is no cutting and soldering needed if you want to just swap this solution into your factory system. Now, let's take a step back, and I want to mention that if you are not looking to build out a custom stereo system, or your car came equipped with more than the basic 5-inch Uconnect, then there is likely no real reason for you to do this upgrade, other than just wanting to. I'm also going to add that it was just pointed out to me that the 2015 and 2016 Uconnect systems don't actually support Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. It's very possible that 2017 or even 2018 was the first year, but I'm not able to confirm that at this time. But even if you do only have the basic 5-inch system, you can easily upgrade to the OEM 8.4 Uconnect with some considerations. I won't go into detail here, mostly because I have not gone through this process myself. But it's not hard to find the information about doing the OEM upgrade online and on YouTube. But back to the Stinger solution. The current model from Stinger is called the High 10 or the UN 1810, and this unit retails for around $763 from the normal sources, such as Amazon. You also need the vehicle-specific installation kit that is sold separate. In my case, I needed the SRK CHR 15H dash kit, which covers the Challengers, Chargers, and of course the Chrysler 300s, starting with 2015 to current. This vehicle-specific kit retails for around $450 to $599 from the usual sources. All in, the retail value on the complete kit for a 2015 or newer Dodge or Chrysler sedan or coupe is $1,249 before tax. But that does ship free if you buy it on Amazon. So how tight is your poop hole puckering right now? I got my High 10 new off of eBay for $5.99. And I got the kit new off of eBay for $362. Both of those were shipped. So, I got a smoking deal of $961. Of course, I am now praying that my wife does not see this video or the credit card statement. All jokes aside, this entire project was funded with proceeds from a car sale and my savings. But that by no means made clicking the Buy Now button any easier. So what makes this solution so special? Well, as I mentioned previously, it's the only option on the market for these specific cars. But to go more in depth, it also integrates with the entire CAN bus system, which retains not only the on-screen HVAC controls, but also all of the performance profiles and setting options. Now, on an SXT, that is not a huge issue because, well, the SXT does not have that many additional features that require a fully integrated touchscreen outside of the HVAC controls. All of the advanced features that matter in an SXT have physical buttons. The real advantage to installing the high 10 comes in the higher trim and V8 models. I certainly could have just found a used 8.4 U-Connect for my car and been done with it. But since I knew I would be building out a stereo system, I intentionally bought an SXT with the basic audio options. Installing the high 10 not only gave me a 10-inch display, but it also gave me 4-volt preamps for front, rear, and subs. I wanted to have the best source for my stereo build, not because I was building out a competition system, but because I wanted to just have the best source. I did not want to mess with line level converters or any sort of external DSP. Plainly, I wanted as much control through the head unit as I could get. Looking back now, I can't say that I accomplished all of that. But I also don't have a better option available. I do think the high 10 is a good head unit, and I will cover my concerns as I go through the next few videos. What I will tell you right now is that I'm disappointed with the built-in DSP and its lack of finite control over the frequency range. I also don't much care for the crossover settings, and I will cover that in detail in episode 3, along with some additional thoughts on the equalizer. With all of that said, and considering, again, my options, I feel like this solution has given me the starting point I need. It's not the starting point I wanted, but it will get this project up and running. This video will not be a how-to on the installation of the Stinger solution system. Stinger has already covered that in a very comprehensive video that I referenced several times throughout this entire process. Please see the links in the description for that video, plus links to all the items shown in the series. This installation was by far one of the longest I have personally undertaken. At first, I attributed that to being my first run at this system. But now I realize what took so long was my OCD and the fact that this car was filthy on the inside. I spent an entire hour at one point just scrubbing the inside of the center console and the area under it to remove all the dried pop. The car was formerly financed through a teachers union, so I can only assume it was Diet Coke, which seems to be the worst form of pop to clean up based on previous detailing experience. I threw all of that video out to save you the agony of staring at my butt the entire time, though I'm sure Ethan will be displeased. When I look at just the preparation, the installation, and the cleanup, I would say that the entire process would only take a few hours. And really the only issue I had was not getting the bucket assembled right the first time. I attribute that to the lack of color instructions and not taking my time to triple check the orientation of the parts. And that screw up only cost me a few minutes at most. I also spent close to 40 minutes just wrapping cables in Tessa tape making harnesses. And somehow I still forgot to add the remote wire. In all, there were over 8 hours of footage recorded for this, but the relevant parts barely made up a video on their own. Still, I wanted to split this series up to give you a clean idea of each portion of the build and my final thoughts. Again, the total installation time was not that long, and I suspect I could do just the stereo portion in around 2 hours. Key things to keep in mind when starting this process is that while yes, all of the panels in the car are either screwed in or held in place with clips, they are not made to be pried on. You need to make sure to have a good set of nylon trim tools, and you need to take your time. Probe around the edges of the trim slowly until you get a section to pop free. It takes a few different tries to get the feel, but once one comes free, you will have a better understanding of the pressure and the force required. Continue to work your way around until it comes loose. I noticed a stark difference in this process compared to the late 90s and early 2000s Fords and GMs I cut my teeth on. Neither brand was known for having good retaining systems. While on the GMs this meant you just grabbed the panel and pulled, the whole thing would just fall into your lap at that point. The same process on the Fords required finesse because the panels would crack if you touched them wrong. They still fell out of the dash with ease, but generally in multiple pieces. The panels in the Challenger were certainly tougher, and the retaining clips held so much better. However, I was still convinced I was going to break the dash trim into multiple pieces before it came out the first time. Throughout this entire installation, I had the dash trim out 3 times, and I'm happy to report that it never broke. I did find evidence that someone else had the dash apart and didn't take their time. The dash surround is a piece that snaps into the trim. Most of the tabs on this connection were already broken. It also seems that none of the vent sections were snapped in properly. These should stay with the dash trim. Luckily, none of those clips were broken. Now, what you're watching on the screen is all of those extra steps that make this process long. I know I will eventually be running all the speakers off amps located in the trunk, so I wanted to get my source cables ran now. I will still have to run new speaker wires, but I hope to run those under the seal plates and not down the center of the car. This was also my first time evaluating the system I was building on, namely the power supply. I believe starting with the 2015 model year, the Challenger had the battery and fuse/distribution box located in the trunk. I am at least certain that this was the first year for the fuse and distribution box to be there. Initially, I was concerned about the charge wire coming from the alternator. I've never worked with a car that had a trunk-mounted battery from the factory, but after looking the system over, I don't think I'll have much issue here. I don't build big power systems. That's not to say that I don't want to build a big power system one day. I've always been fascinated by low wattage and high output systems. I also try to balance sound quality with my bass. Yes, I want a system that do bump, but I also want to hear the Hell Freezes Over album in all of its live glory. When I built the Mustang, I used Air-specific Rockford Fosgate amps. You may know them as cheater amps nowadays. Amps that are rated on the low end of the wattage spectrum, but generally do output fairly well and are fairly efficient for their time. Generally, I try to keep my systems well under 1,000 watts total, and I try to target roughly 100 to 120 decibels. At least that's the volume target this time. My Mustang targeted 90 decibels, and I feel like I left a lot of potential on the table doing so. I do build my systems for me to enjoy. I don't set out to be obnoxious, but I certainly retain the right to be so when the time is right. So, for this system, with the battery already in the trunk, I feel like I have a pretty good starting point power-wise. I'm still planning to upgrade the alternator at a later time, but I'm going to watch the demand and see how far this alternator will take me. In the next episode of this build, I'll start getting into mounting the amps, getting the subwoofers installed, and getting the system put together. Then episode 3, I'll cover the tuning that I did. The amp and subs that I went with are nothing spectacular. I went with a pre-built box from MTX with one of their little Terminator amps. I'm not impressed as far as car audio enthusiasts go, but I am impressed with what I got for my money. It's two 12-inch subs in a common chamber sealed box. So being a common chamber, it doesn't have the frequency range that I prefer. My Mustang was built with a 6th order, which I really wish I had documented that to show how I got a 6th order into a 2002 Mustang. And I'm not sure what direction I'm going to go with this car. I went with the system that I went with because I don't have a lot of time this winter to be building out a box and speccing out and tuning, and I just wanted to get a system up and going. I've got a few other things coming together that I want to get videos put out on this year, going into early next year. And then next spring, I'm going to sit down and design and build a really nice box for this car. I'm starting to lean towards a 6th order. Also kind of thinking maybe a 4th order. I don't know yet. I would certainly love to hear your ideas and thoughts. I want to thank everybody for watching. I'm just getting this channel up and going. I've had it for several years, but now I'm putting time and effort into it. I appreciate all of the subscribers that I have so far. I appreciate all of the views that I'm getting, and I really appreciate all of the comments and conversation that has come up. I look forward to engaging with you all more as I get into this channel more, and I hope you watch. And if this is your first time on one of my videos, please take the time to subscribe and hit that bell notification. Thanks, everybody.